Messages.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim.
Salam, hello, peace to you all, and welcome to the 35th edition of Office Hours. The Radical Academy is in session, and we have a really special blockbuster edition today at a special time. This is not our usual time, usually Friday, but we're so grateful for our guests to be able to make time after just arriving back from Iran. It's a favorite of Office Hours, friend, comrade, friend of the show, multiple time guest, beloved by this community, Professor David Yaghoubian. Dave, welcome home, sort of.
Thank you,
One of
Edmond.
your
It's
homes.
Great to be
great
with
see
you. I'm looking forward to our conversation. I'll just say, as an intro, I just got back 2 days ago. I'm totally jet lagged. I have not been watching any talking heads, or I just got caught up on Telegram with what's been going on for the last 48 hours. So this will be sort of like fresh and raw, and just we don't necessarily have a strict agenda. So this will just be my take in response to the questions that you ask, and hopefully I'll be coherent. So because
I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure it'll be valuable for people. And of course, if you have questions, please post them in the chat, and maybe we'll be able to get to some of them. But there really is a lot to talk about, because you were in Iran for like a couple of weeks, all told, I think.
3 weeks, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Almost 3 weeks. Okay. So, and you did a lot of traveling within the country, as well as, of course, time spent in Tehran. And you've been sending me images and videos of, your time there when you could post, with internet and so on, given all the limitations. But you've downloaded quite a number of them, and we can share some of them for people to be able to get a more firsthand kind of flavor with you narrating and telling us about it. But why don't you tell us a little bit, maybe at the start, just your trip there, why you wanted to go at this time, and let's just begin with getting why you were heading there at this particular time.
Sure. Well, there were really several reasons. I have friends and family in Iran that I was unable to communicate with during the 39 or 40 days of war. I'm not sure which they're going with officially, so I like 40, but some people say 39. Anyway, I was unable to contact my aunt, who's 91 and who broke her hip getting up from her bed when her window broke during the 12-day war. So she's on the mend. That was of concern, and also several friends of mine. So I wanted to go and see them, even though I had found out that they were all alive. I have friends in Bandar Abbas, which of course is the city that is closest to the Strait of Hormuz. And so therefore I was kind of concerned about my friends there. I had found out through other friends that they were okay, but I was really desperate to see everyone. And then also, as a scholar of Iranian nationalism, I had to go back and visit to kind of gauge myself what was happening, the sentiment on the streets, having, I know what's going on there. I can sort of divine by seeing a video, knowing Tehran and Iran and Iranians, but especially the gatherings, the nightly gatherings in squares. I think I showed up on like the 105th night or something, like somebody let me know that, you're here for the 105th or 6th, something like that. I wanted to talk to people and experience it and sort of see, just gauge and feel what was going on personally. So that was another motivation. And then in conjunction, since I have friends in Bandar Abbas, Bandar Abbas is only about an hour away from Minab, and so visiting my dear friend Amir and his sons in Bandar Abbas, we also were able to go to Minab. Another thing I'll just mention, because it was kind of unique for me. I've traveled back and forth, to Iran literally countless times. I don't know, 30, 40 something. I stopped counting a long time ago. But I had never gone overland, actually, and this is a shame, but I'm saying in 25 years of travel, and I've been to more cities than many Iranians have, never had gone overland ever. Always flown, because I'm in the country for a relatively short time, and the train, which takes time, wasn't really conducive to shorter trips. So even though there were flights that were available from Istanbul to Tehran, uh, I wasn't necessarily going to be able to rely on there being flights, because they were talking about closing the airspace. So I decided to go in overland. I flew to Van, Turkey. That's in eastern Turkey. Took a cab to the border, did the border process, found some guys to drive me to Tabriz, which is about 5 hours, and then they actually, sweethearts that they are, Omid and Ali, put me directly on the bus, 10-hour bus to Iran, and then to visit Bandar Abbas, I took a 20 was the scheduled, but a 22-hour train ride there and back from Bandar Abbas. So basically, I saw the entire country from the far northwest in eastern Azerbaijan at the border, all the way down to Bandar Abbas in the Persian Gulf at the Strait of Hormuz. So for me, someone who is Iranian, who was born in Iran, who has traveled in Iran, who has studied Iran, but who has never actually gone overland through the country, this was really an amazing experience. And just, I think that a relevant takeaway for our conversation would be the vastness of this country and its geography as a hindrance to invasion and attack. Because I know the mountains, I've seen them in between Bandar Abbas and sort of the high desert, but going through by train, if anyone's familiar with the passes to Tehachapi, the train infrastructure in Tehachapi of California, it's much like that. You know, it's high mountain passes and rail infrastructure that dates back to the Reza Shah era. But just a very the geography is a impediment to the invasion, especially from the Persian Gulf, and so that physical journey from the border all the way down to Bandar Abbas was fascinating, and I think also just enlightening for me as well, in terms of my understanding of the vastness of the country, and therefore relative to the impossibility of a ground invasion and occupation of Iran.
Yeah, I mean, I love train travel anywhere, but especially in places that I'm new to visiting, to be able to see what the country looks like. I mean, it's a little like being driven, but it's more comfortable and just kind of cooler in a train. So
Mhm.
it's great that you had a chance to take one of these long train trips, but it just demonstrates how big the country is. If you look on a
Definitely,
map, it is a huge country. It's like
definitely.
most of Western Europe, would fit inside.
Larger than Ukraine, larger than most of the Western states combined. I did see a comment there.
Yeah,
What's
what
the
the
inside
inside
of
of
the
the
train cars
train
like?
cars like.
And I did want to say, when I was writing on it, I was just thinking to myself, why can't we have nice things in the United States? Because, folks, I had to take a third class train from Tehran to Bandar Abbas. I was lucky and got the second class back, but the third class train is nicer than anything I have seen in the United States. It was, I thought to myself, if this was first and they had just put me in there and said, here you go, I would have said, great, this is beautiful. So I was excited. I got the second class back, which instead of 6 beautiful beds with all the accoutrements, it's just 4. And they're a little bit more Recaro, like racing style seats, but like same thing basically. And since I was traveling alone and wanted to sleep, I basically bought all 6 seats on the way there. That was the total of about $65 to $70. And then buying the 4 second class seats on the way back was actually cheaper, because it was only 4 seats, and that was something, 60, 65 or so. All the kebab, all the drinks, all the love, beautiful, clean, the bathroom clean. Just saying, folks. So if a government actually has an interest in developing infrastructure for its population that's beautiful and clean and functional, it could happen here in the United States, but I won't hold my breath. Iran has a beautiful, functional rail system. I just, it was, if you're taking the train, you got to be prepared for a few extra hours, because it did say 20 hours, and both ways it was actually about 22 and a half, but 22 and a half on time. So if that makes sense. So I just want to mention that. Absolutely gorgeous. And really, going forward, if I have time, I will never fly in Iran again, because the train is so mellow. The train station was so beautiful. I had to select photos to send to Adnan, and I had already queued up a few of the train stations just because it's gorgeous. But yeah, we have limited time, and not going to share all of my travel photos, but really just beautiful. And the pace of train travel, and the stress of, like, they have security, but it's not like airport security, and just everything, dealing with bags, dealing with bathroom, dealing with everything is just way more relaxed. And so I'm really looking forward to traveling by train in Iran in the future, and glad I had that experience, despite the very, like, unfortunate and terrible circumstances that are occurring, and also that I was sort of going to Bandar Abbas to witness.
Yeah, well, we'll talk, in a moment about Bandar Abbas and your visit to Minab, and maybe see some of the video that you took while there, especially visiting the cemetery for the victims of that brutal U.S. attack. But you mentioned that one of the reasons to go at this time, apart from just sort of personal family and friends and so on, was also to just get a sense of what people are saying, to talk with them, to find out how they're responding to and reacting to the 40-day war, and then the subsequent period where there's been some attacks, but where the bombardments practically ceased, even if there were a lot of economic issues and problems, and the nightly rallies still continued throughout that entire period. So, what kinds of things did you learn when speaking with people about their experience and what they thought about the situation, about how Iran had come through the kind of military operations, and what the outlook was like? And I think you were there around, during the whole ramp up of the memorandum of understanding, so we might get to that. But even before we talk about the diplomacy, what was just people's experiences like? What did they tell you?
I forgot to add another reason I was in a rush to get there, and actually ended up spending more to extend my trip, was two things. I wanted to be there for the first 10 days of the month of Muharram, which began on our June 16th, and especially through to the 10th day, which is Ashura, which is the date in which, in the year 680, Imam Hussein died at the hands of Yazid. Won't go into that narrative. Hopefully people are familiar with that. But
I did a 4-part series about it, and we talked about some of those things. So this group will know at least the basics. So
okay,
yeah.
Excellent. So I realized, even because I was going to have to travel overland, that's why I ended up changing my dates, because I wanted to be there on the 1st of Muharram and through the 10th. And I had also heard, unfortunately, I got bad information, even an official graphic that said that Ayatollah Khamenei's funeral was going to be in between, during the first 10 days. I wasn't sure about that, because they don't like to overlap important events. Which then wouldn't necessarily enable him to create a new holiday or a new ritual. But so after I arrived, I found out, oh no, I'm gonna miss Ayatollah Khamenei's funeral. But I was there, and in Tehran. My first night was the first night of Muharram, and then I went down to Bandar Abbas, came back, and I was there in Van Eyck Square, which is sort of my aunt's neighborhood. That's sort of therefore my adopted neighborhood for the Ashura events. And so I'll just generalize and say, as I always do, I'm talking to everybody and asking them, what they think and what's going on, and how they feel about current events. And I guess I could just summarize in this way. There is no doubt on behalf of any Iranian that I spoke to that Iran was victorious in the war. And there was absolutely no sense of fear whatsoever regarding the Americans, the Israelis, their weapons of death. Like when I was in Bandar Abbas, I was in my friend's really beautiful air conditioned office, and there was a giant explosion, like just I can't really describe it, just like a big deep explosion, and everybody at their desk kind of like looked up. They looked at each other and then just like waited a minute and then just went back to work. And my friend Amir, he said to me, he's like, yeah, it's probably just bomb disposal, dude. It's cool. And I think I texted you and even some of my friends like, oh shit, like something just went off. If it doesn't hit the fan, it's probably just bomb disposal. So there are things like that going on. They're picking up the pieces. We might show some pictures later of some of the bomb damage that I saw in Tehran that was pretty shocking to me. But this is one point. The concern, though, let's get to the concern. The concern that everyone had, that everyone was sharing, was over this MOU thing. Like what's going to happen? And everyone that I spoke to, and this is from cab drivers to my friends to people at Press TV to Auntie, the experience of the JCPOA signing an agreement and whatever, almost hugging with John Kerry in 2016, and Zarif there and Rouhani there, and the way that ended up for Iranians, which is basically 10 years of sanctions. We're now in 2026. And let me just add, Adnan, when we were there together a little bit over 6 months ago, it was 800,000 rials to the dollar. When the riots occurred in early January with the support of, as claimed by Mossad and Mike Pompeo, the CIA and Mossad agents, the rial had popped to about 1.2, and maybe in another day it had gone to 1.4 and then come down to 1.2, and that was already unbearable. Well, when I was there, so now this is just 6 months after we were there together, and the rial was 800,000 to the dollar. It has doubled. It was 1.6 million. I got 1.6 million from my guy, right? And that I could have done better if I had gone down to Manicherry Street and wheeled and dealed, right? So that's horrific. So with that little added bit of detail, the concern is, and I'm saying to people, well, there's the potential to drop the sanctions. Basically, the response was, yeah, dude, you saying that for 10 years. Right? We'll see. That they're gun shy about this. If I don't know if it's the right analogy, but this, no matter what has happened, whatever diplomatic discussions, whatever the EU and the E3 and the P5+1, and it has just resulted in additional sanctions and a further devaluation of the currency. In the James Carville, it's the economy stupid sort of tradition, this is critical. And many observers who take a broader top-down view expressed their real concern about this. And that is that, yes, Iranians know they were victorious, and they can see the even further legitimacy of the government in terms of where it has been spending its funds, right? Because you got the subway and all the beautiful infrastructure, but you also have Shahab missiles and, Khorramshahr and all that. So there is that. There is a new and really palpable unity in the streets, and at least amongst those tens of thousands who are in the streets at any given time. So, but in terms of, is this a victory? Like, can we look forward now to a future without sanctions? That is not there yet. Nobody is dropping the balloons or otherwise celebrating this victory, other than a military victory over entities that murdered the supreme leader, and in the process murdered his and other entire families, bombed an entire apartment complex to kill Larijani, among others. I mean, so it's like certainly bittersweet, but ultimately, in terms of a end result that Iranians are focusing on and most concerned with, what's going to be the result of this? So even, if you will, bravado from Arakchi, and he was one of the most popular guys on the internets, several months ago. People are like this with Arakchi now, if you will. Like, what are you going to do? Let me just elaborate. Arakchi was part of the JCPOA discussions and negotiation. He was, he's been on the nuclear file for years. Therefore, he's associated with the JCPOA. He doesn't have as bad of a reputation, if you will, as say Mohammed Javad Zarif does, which I don't personally think is legitimate. And we could go into that in another conversation, but people like scapegoats. And so the reformists are oftentimes the punching bag. But Arakchi, whereas his external X view, wow, this guy is this super cool and stalwart, foreign minister, and he's getting a lot of shit back home. In fact, there's a video right now where it is I believe it's the uncle of one of the relatives of Khamenei who was killed in the bombing, who is shaking the hands of all of the foreign ministers, but he's kissing and hugging and crying with everybody. He gets to Arakchi, shakes his hand, moves on. And, Iran International is making a big deal out of this, right? To try to stir the pot, to get people pissed off at each other. But I'm just saying, based on conversations that I had, trepidation about Arakchi and the reformists and what they might do, even Galibov. Okay. I had people who were like, yeah, dude, I'm on the fence about him. Really? Yeah, we know he's connected and all that, but what's he going to do here? What's he going to do here? Let me just roll. We got strength. We showed them. We have the Strait of Hormuz. We could have gone for another month. Why stop? Why not just go? Okay, there are genuine concerns with the amount of food that Iran, it still needs to import foodstuffs and things. There were calculations that the government made regarding the efficacy of taking a break, right? So we can't think of this just as, oh, they let the attackers off the hook and they shouldn't have, right? But I'm just saying that people are looking at the government and considering, based on past disappointments, what's going to happen right now. And if the past is any gauge, it'll lead to discussions that will end up kicking this can down the road for a couple of years. The rial is going to be at $2.8 million next year. We're not going to get shit, because that's how things go when you negotiate with the Zio-American Epstein empire.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is interesting, that it seems like the criticism of the reformists is pretty widespread, in the sense that even people who might not normally be considered the principalists, they've been so disappointed by the outcomes of negotiations since the JCPOA that have actually worsened Iran's isolation, its position, the economy, and so on. I even heard that during the war, the rial recovered slightly. I mean, before the end of the fight, by the time there was a kind of end of the direct fighting, then it started to actually depreciate again, pretty massively. And of course, there are a lot of odd factors to the moment of war, that might affect, the value. But people who care about the economic bread and butter type of issues that had been promised that, if you negotiate, then we will be reintegrated eventually into, the economic order and so on, that has just not happened for them. So it sounds like a lot of the critique is coming from not necessarily people who are diehard revolutionaries, but just think, hey, that failed. We don't want to keep going down that. Let's see.
Let me just address something directly. We've got a comment here. Bullshit, pro Zarif guy, waste of time, lots of mistaken analysis. With all due respect, people that take this line, thank you for doing it, and especially do it publicly, because it feeds into the narrative that the Islamic Republic of Iran would like you to feed into. And I'm going to say this in a particular way for what it's worth, but this is a system and they know what they're doing. And the reformists versus the conservatives, think kayfabe sometimes, folks. There's a reason for this. Mohammed Javad Zarif and Rouhani bought the Islamic Republic of Iran about 10 years to stock up on everything that they needed for this war. If they had gone into this 10 years ago or 6 years ago or 3 years ago, the outcome might not have been what it was. And so this is part of the system. And I mean, part of it is, for example, Iranians just ripping on the reformists and it's all their fault. And this is by design. And so go ahead, get pissed off at Mohammad Javad Zarif and make it public, because you actually support the kind of narrative that is most functional for the Islamic Republic of Iran. I don't know whether that makes sense or not, but the job of the JCPOA itself, like people that are just purists that, we should have never gone into that. And we should, what were you going to do 10 years ago? You weren't going to do shit 10 years ago. And so this bought the Islamic Republic of Iran time to develop its defenses, develop its technologies, develop its allied relationships, develop its legitimacy, show the world. Let me just say, I was shocked around 2017, especially 2018, reading Washington Post comments, people saying, wow, for the first time, I trust the Iranian government and what they say as opposed to our lying government. All of this was necessary to bring the Islamic Republic of Iran to a point where it could survive this war in 2026, and it could do it with a growing soft power and legitimacy. And so it's a team effort, folks. It takes a village, if you will. And that's what's going on in the government of the Islamic Republic with the conservatives and the reformists, all of who are vetted, for elections. So that's about where I'm going to leave it, but go ahead, whoever it was, and get pissed off at the bullshit pro Zarif guy, because it helps. And thank you. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it does. Certainly having millions of people in the square nightly demanding no negotiations, we cannot abandon Lebanon, like all of these things have actually strengthened the hand in negotiations for people who are dealing with Zio-American, Epstein empire is, they have behind them people publicly, nightly, showing absolute defiance and resistance. So, I mean, I think
one more thing. Can I just add? A lot of people are like, oh my God, that Zarif letter, he was going to give away the farm. Actually, look at the 14-point plan and then look at what Zarif wrote. Compare the two. See any resemblance? If people out there who are criticizing actually read closely. So they know what they're doing, clearly. Sorry to interrupt you, Adnan, but it's an important point. Like it's like, sorry, but it's a little too like junior or stock to just like rip on Mohammad Javad Zarif. But people that do that are themselves accomplishing an important purpose. So thank you. Sorry, I'll leave that there.
Okay. Yeah. I think I took a rather jaundiced view of his foreign affairs piece as well, but that's great. I'm part of the support for the Iranian resistance here. Put pressure on the U.S. government to think that, hey, listen, you can't get away with things because I think they said from the beginning that okay, we'll negotiate, but our finger is on the trigger, right? And that's kind of been the balance here, is that you've got the good cop bad cop sort of routine here, and we see that how Donald Trump has at various times tried to portray it as like, well, we don't know who to negotiate with kind of thing. Is partly that's, I mean, obviously there are official delegates, they're the ones who showed up in Islamabad, but this idea that there are differences and conflicts or factional positions, I mean, that's just normal politics. Is
Absolutely.
Always going to
be. There are. This is a difficult sort of road to hoe. They're trying to figure it out. So I'm not saying at all that they're all in agreement and all of these issues are just sort of for show. That there is somewhat of a there, but it's all done within a structured context that is by design. Yeah.
Right. I mean, I think the important point that you mentioned was that it's a system. So that's the point. It's not about some individual personalities. There is a system that balances different orientations and possibilities in the interest of the Islamic Republic of Iran. And people have different ideas of what the best thing to do is. But I like these stories that show that the current supreme leader, Mujtaba Khamenei, Sayyid Mujtaba Khamenei, kind of held himself in reserve on some of these negotiations as well, but said, well, I had my questions and doubts, but they assured me that they would preserve the interest and that they wouldn't give away, you know, positions that had been won on the battlefield in negotiations. And so I said, okay, you can do it. So in a way, this is just providing, a certain kind of legitimacy as well as plausible deniability if it doesn't work out.
Think about what Khamenei did. His father said the same thing.
Yeah.
Therefore, the leader's off the hook. You can do this if you want. Of course, they're given the okay to do that. And then if it doesn't work out, we blame the Washington Generals, right? If everybody knows the Harlem Globetrotters, that's the reformists. They're sort of set up to be the fall guy if necessary. This is how it works, folks. I don't know if I should be pulling back that much of the curtain, but Mojtaba Khamenei, the new leader, coming out and saying essentially the same thing. If it doesn't work, he won't be blamed. They'll rip now Arakchi and put him in the Javad Zarif camp, and our commentators can like rip them too and feel good about it. But somebody's got to do it. And this whole line, this is a very, like, it sort of comes from Western resistance. We're like, come on, just be tough. You can do it. We're here in our like Zoom studios 10,000 miles away, but you can kick their ass and you should do it our way. Cause and it's like, it doesn't work that way. And if you look at the soft power that Iran has developed in conjunction with its hard power, then maybe you'll begin to understand the importance of the sort of propagation and persistence of those narratives and dynamics. It's essential. It's part of the system.
Well, that's a very interesting point as well about both the hard and soft power, because as we've been saying on some of the other programs, and even in talking about the World Cup, like the United States under the Trump regime, and particularly the way the right wing views international relations and geopolitics, their idea is that soft power is actually harming us. Let's get rid of USAID. And, people like me are laughing. It's like, that's what has helped accomplish so much for the U.S. empire. And you guys want to destroy it, but fine, that's great, because that just like removes one more layer of legitimacy and, one tool in the toolbox of U.S. empire going forward, is that it's already vanishing because of the gap between rhetoric and action and the global events. They're ready to shred the entire so-called rules-based order, international law, international institutions, and so forth, to pursue the genocide, to pursue these illegal wars against Iran and the axis of resistance, and so on. That's already happening. But then on top of it, you have an administration that has such a bizarro world, kind of perception of the actual world, that a distorted sense that they think the U.S. soft power is the problem. Okay, so at the time that they're destroying U.S. soft power deliberately, so that they can just be rough and tough, and then they're getting, defeated militarily in some level. Of course, they've done a huge amount of damage in Iran, and we're going to take a look at least some photos of it. Militarily, they were not successful. Everybody feels that. The people of Iran are clearly, as you reported, convinced by it. But what it shows is that Iran actually now is both a military power and is wielding soft power, is actually, framing narratives, is got an image in the world. We'll talk a little bit about the funeral and what they're doing with it, but there is a cogent way of representing an anti-imperialist politics for the entire world and global South in particular, that Iran's diplomats, Iran's leaders are clearly aware of and are using it. That's why you get those explosive media videos being watched by millions around the world.
I was just going to say, I really, it was not, and people could go back and listen to what I was saying for months and years. In fact, that's why I got it wrong. I knew that Iran's military capabilities were so strong that I just thought there's no way the U.S. they know that too, so they won't attack. But what has blown my mind is not the missile response or the drone response or its asymmetrical response, but actually the soft power response. Because before this latest war, even during the 12-day war, Iran, kind of like Russia, not their forte, not their skill, didn't really seem to know how to do it. So this was like, if there was a sort of Wunderwaffen that Iran whipped out during the war, it wasn't any of the missiles. It was the Lego videos and the tweets from even one today. The Armenian, the Iranian embassy in Armenia fired off a barn burner to Trump. So just they got their legs, if you will, in terms of communication, very, very strongly and very effectively, I think. Adnan, before we move on and maybe show some photos, I wanted to address this excellent question that someone wrote in the chat there. They said, Dr. Yaghoubian, you mentioned folks were worried about the MOU and are steadfast in their convictions. At the same time, government is trying to offset hardship. Does the government lack faith in their people? I mentioned it before, but if you know the old James Carville phrase, it's the economy stupid, and the context for that, when people are under dire economic circumstances, I don't know how else to say this, but those can overwhelm, depending on one's circumstance and what's going on with their family and their future. That can overwhelm ideology, whether we'd like to think that it can or not here in the West, where we're never tested like that. Okay, and so. Without naming names, I've seen some of the most hardcore revolutionaries who would put anybody watching this in the West to shame in terms of what they've actually done. Let's just leave it at that. Themselves have questioned, should I stay here? It's for my kids, or should I try to go? And I, of course, as someone who just visits, have been horrified to hear this, but seeing the reality that economic circumstances can really tear societies and people apart and lead them even to want to commit suicide and horrible things. It's just a reality. And again, if any of you watching have never been that desperate, then you don't know. And so you can't judge, right? So this question, does the government lack faith in their people? No, the government is pragmatic, and it recognizes that even the Iranian people who are majority Shia and who just engaged in Ashura rituals for Imam Hussein, even they have a limit. Okay. And so there is a concern. The riots that by all accounts that people that I spoke to, the riots that happened in January, they were absolutely led and funded and armed by the CIA and Mossad. But who came out? There was disgruntled teens and people who just fucking hate Islam, and who Iran has all those. We've talked about those in previous office hours, right? And even if that constitutes 10% of the country, if that 10% are out on the streets breaking shit, that's something that needs to be dealt with. And the 90%, if you will, on that day, the silent majority, they're not out and they're not taken to the streets because there's a curfew. Where have we seen that silent majority? On the streets for 100 plus days after the war, and they're locking it down, and there's not going to be the ability for disgruntled goths or other elements of Iranian society to come and break shit. Okay, but it's a reality. And so don't think of Iran as this ideological purity and all the Iranians carry this struggle and just kill me like Imam Hussein and kill my kids, because ultimately, if that what goes down, they're going to be martyrs and they're going to live forever in the hearts and minds of Iranians and in heaven with the other shohadat. But that's not what Shiism teaches. You don't try to go be a martyr, and you don't, if you have to embrace it, you do. But we want to live and we want to support our families is the message. And so the government, just in closing, is justifiably concerned that economic conditions imposed from without will lead to potentially more economic strife. Let's remember that in January, before the riot, Mossad supported rioters came out, there were genuine protests by Iranian shopkeepers who were like, dude, you can't, this has to stop. Something needs to stop in terms of the devaluation of the currency. So that's real. Okay. Those are real Iranians. Those were real Bazaris. That's the Bazar class that was most instrumental in bringing both 20th century Iranian revolutions to bear, the 1905 to 11, as well as the 1979. So when these people cry uncle, you pay attention if you want to maintain your government.
Yeah, you had mentioned, I tried to look for it. I don't know where the post might be, but I think it's a great example of the soft power of the embassies of the Islamic Republic around the world. Might call it the mosaic uh, info war, attack. It's like it's distributed across all these different embassies. So here's one talking about, putting Sayyid Ali Khamenei in this sort of heroic tradition, going back to the ancient Achaemenids, who died in battle, right? The leaders who died in battle, leading the nation. So, an interesting, point there.
There was another one, by the way. It was, oh God, it might have been Dariush from Persepolis, his profile and a profile of Khamenei, and they
in a
happened to be
similar,
very
yeah.
similar in that one, and so lots of that going around, and that is very noteworthy because I'd say prior to just a year ago, the government would be very reticent to link pre-Islamic Jahiliyyah anything with the government, and they're leaning in now. And so that's also something that, just for example, I have a picture, I didn't send it to you, but it's Arash the Archer, right? Like in Van Nak, but they covered the base of the statue with Quranic inscriptions, and actually probably from Ali's hadith, actually, Nashal Balagha. I'm realizing that's what was written there. But so this is this melding of the pre-Islamic Shahnameh narratives with the Shia narratives during Ashura, like that's just really powerful. And I'm glad they realized the power of that. And if you will, let's just be honest, it always has been Iranian nationalism and Shia Islam. I've even tried to describe my research focus and book in different terms, because Iranians, they nationalism, the word they use nationalism. They don't have an exact other word, and the other words that you'd say, like Vatan Parast or something, those country lover, those don't really, right? So they trip on nationalism just as a term and a concept, but it's like, hey folks, like look in the mirror. That's what just saved you and the country.
Yeah.
So my job has become a lot easier. Actually, people are willing to talk to me now about my book on Iranian nationalism, because that term now doesn't have the same like sketchy or negative connotation relative to the strength of the country.
Right. In the era of the Islamic Republic, where that might have been seen in a different light. But also that point that you made about, not, embracing the possibility of martyrdom, but not necessarily seeking it in a haphazard or foolish fashion. That's not really, it reminds us of that video just a few weeks before the start of this war and the assassination of Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Khamenei, where the boy, comes to him and says, "Oh, I want to be a martyr too. I want to be a martyr." And he says, "Oh, okay, cool it just for a second. Like first, like study and learn and grow up, be strong, serve your country, have a wonderful career, do good." Then you're 80 or 90.
When you're 80 or 90, you
can be a martyr. And of course, if a few weeks, a month or so after that, he was in fact actually a martyr. So, but why don't we take a look at some of the damage? I mean, you were in Iran, and so this where is this street scene in Tehran?
So I'll describe this, and actually, Adnan, you might then remember from our trip, because we walked down the same side of the street. I had gone to Engelab Square, which is Revolution Square, where they had just put up some beautiful new imagery for Ashura, imagery that completely like melds the pre-Islamic Jahiliyyah with the revolution and with the war, and just kind of very normal. Okay, I'm going to go walk down to a shop that I go to where I can get revolutionary tchotchkes and things. And I'd taken Adnan there. And folks, I'm walking down the street and I look across the street, and my honest reaction was, holy shit. Oh my God. Like, fuck, like, pardon me. I hope that doesn't get you demonetized, dude. But that was my response, was, oh my God, there's a whole city block. And so this is a city block that has been taken out by multiple, probably JASSMs or JDAMs, standoff munitions. that was basically, and you can see over, I guess I can't mouse over, but to the right of the frame, that's the front of the police station that was part of this urban city block. They took out the police station, lots of residences, the rest of the block. And if their goal was that communication tower there, then they got an F, because they missed that communication tower. That wasn't put back up or anything. That just survived the onslaught. It's right there in the middle of that rubble there. So here's the point about this. On the one hand, Tehran is like LA. It's a megalopolis. Like, and when I came in on the bus, and it was the cab from the bus, and the bus, it was early morning. It was like dawn. So I could, like, no traffic. I could see everything, and no damage whatsoever that I could see, cruising around, no damage. Then all of a sudden, whoa, war. Oh my God. Like this was just shocking to me, because it isn't, to my knowledge, unless somebody pointed out, anywhere else in the city. There are multiple spots. Probably there's 200 spots like this around Tehran, but Tehran is so huge. It's a megalopolis with about 20 million people just spread out, probably like greater LA area. That disappears really quickly. Even 200 sites like this, you'd have to know where they are. Otherwise you just wouldn't see them. So I was definitely just a bit shocked. I don't know, like taking it personally, like, dude, they're going to bomb this neighborhood, which is like a familiar neighborhood to me. Like, I don't know, it's kind of weird, but just, and then I realized if I could just stumble upon this, then clearly there are so many other sites around the city that look like this, including Ali Larijani's urban neighborhood, or I guess more like suburban. So with that, if you remember, Adnan, the tall blue skyscraper that they bombed next to my aunt's house, which blew out her window and everything. Yeah, that's fixed now. They just have one crane up there putting in the last glass. So they've been constantly rebuilding from the 12-day war, and they're clearing rubble. They had the earth moving equipment out to clear this site up. But anyway, that, just for what it's worth, there is some vast destruction in Tehran, but relative to the scope of the city, it's not like you would notice, or that people are how's this, folks? Like, and I have other photos, such as of the Minab school, but I would just say it gives us perspective on Gaza, right? Because Gaza is 25 by 5 miles, and it essentially all like this, and it gives us insight into southern Lebanon. But relative to the size of Tehran, it's not even the fly on an ass of an elephant.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Minab, maybe we should talk about your visit there. You went down to the south on that train trip to Bandar Abbas, and from there inland. From Bandar Abbas is on the coast, close to, as you pointed out, the Strait of Hormuz. And Minab is a small town, not about an hour inland, I think, from, or at least somewhat inland from the coast, but not far from Bandar Abbas. So tell us a little bit about the trip, and I'll, queue up some of the images and video that you took there.
Sure. One thing that I myself learned, actually, as we were pulling into Minab, was I said to my buddy Amir, like, dude, this isn't a little town. He's like, no, it's a city. And I was like, I don't know why I thought it was a little like a little village or a town. And he's like, no, dude, there's like 100,000 people here. Based on the scope of it, I had texted to my wife, like, this place is like Redlands, California. And interestingly, Minab is cited at about, I believe, 73,000 population, and Redlands, California is at about 75,000. So I kind of gauged that right. So I was stunned. Minab isn't a town or even a village. It's a city. It's and as Amir said, he's like, man, this is the second largest city in Hormozgan province. So it's a city. It's a beautiful city. It reminded me of many like coastal Mexican towns, even sort of like Cabo San Lucas, because it's all palm trees, and they have like white arch kind of, it looks almost like Spanish architecture there. And it still has, even though it's inland, it has a beach vibe. I don't know how there's agriculture in between the city and the water there. And there, so the beach and the coast is still part of Greater Minab, right? So it is kind of a coastal town, even though the city itself is set off and you don't like see the beach, right? So uh, so that was just interesting. We had to drive to the far end of the city because that is where the school is, and so just therefore got to see the whole thing. And among other things, as you're driving through the main thoroughfare, all of the martyrs from the school, their photos are hanging there on street lamps and on trees all the way through. So I didn't send them, but they're repetitive and redundant. But I got pictures of many and most of those just to document how the city is remembering. I don't know if you have any of those photos, but when you arrive at the school, the external wall has a beautiful mural with the eyes of many of the students as you drive down the sort of alleyway to get to the front of the school. This is very powerful. So what we're looking at here, though, is of course the blown off half of the elementary school in Minab, which was hit by either 2 or 3 Tomahawk missiles. It is believed that it was actually a triple tap, as they say. In this image that Adnan is showing here, you can see just on the other side of those tables, and I'll describe what's there in a second, but some flags in a circle. That is where one of the Tomahawk, either the second or the third, came in. And so that spot has been marked with red flags and with flowers. On the tables are the detritus of an elementary school that has been bombed by the Epstein Empire. You have books and shards of clothing and pencils and little notebooks and backpacks and just things that kids going to school would have had before they were blown to bits by Raytheon technology. I'll just say there was an excellent short documentary done by Helia Doutari, which I believe is called Still Minab, and it shows she was able to go about a week or 2 after the attack. And so a week or 2 after the attack, there was no infrastructure. There weren't even like stanchions to keep people out. And so they're just walking through everything and walking up the stairs, and very powerful, amazing footage. And everyone should really watch that documentary. What they've done since then was to sort of keep people from getting hurt and from altering the site. They've put up some barriers with the images of the students and their teachers, and they've brought these tables forward and put some items on them so that people who are standing under a little shaded area, because folks, it's 100 to 110 degrees and the most brutal humidity, I'm saying, at this time of year that you've ever experienced. And so people visiting, which there are people constantly visiting, they set up a little infrastructure for them so that they can like bear the heat. And so as you can see there, they're asking people, please don't walk by here. I'm sure if I had asked, they would have let me, because they were basically saying whatever you'd like to do here, but out of respect, of course, and just there's no need. I just took the pictures from the outside. Adnan, I don't know if you have that one video queued, but it's very silent and somber. But at one point, the people who are sort of running the mourning going on there at the site, they turned on some local music really loud, and it was really powerful. And I just grabbed maybe a 20-second clip that I did send everybody I knew, because it just kind of, for me anyway, at least embodied or kind of encapsulated the way it felt in that moment. And I don't know if that's too abstract, but that video is a powerful representation. And as well, then of course, just the photographs documenting not only the site. So, by the way, I was so moved by that music. I tried to Shazam it, and no luck, no go. Locals, my friends, were like, "Oh yeah, we'll get that for you." Couldn't find it, so I think it's just local. Might even be Minab music. Anyway, for what that's worth, so the I don't know because they weren't my photos, but I was there 2 days before Ashura, which is again the 10th day of the month of Muharram, which is the month of mourning for Shia Muslims. The 10th day is the most intense because that's the day on which Imam Hussein was killed. One of the gentlemen there who was talking to me said, "Hey, you got to stay, dude. Like the families are going to be here for Ashura evening, and it's going to be intense." He even used the word, "It's going to be crazy." Like, and my itinerary didn't even allow for it, but honestly, like that's probably too intense for me. So I decided against that. But the photographs and the video from that event there at night are just really intense. And I'll just say, in hindsight, I'm glad that I let the locals do their thing, because I don't know, I'm weak, and leave it at that, emotional as you can tell. So it was like devastating, man. And I'll get my shit together before we go talk about the cemetery. But the cemetery is just another really like heavy place. I'll just say, folks, I've sort of ambulance chased some of the most horrific scenes and places in post-revolutionary Iranian history, including battlefields, Shalem, Che, like I'll leave it at that. But this was just beyond. This was like, I like just, and this isn't about my feelings and my comfort or whatever. I'm just trying to express why it's like just really hard to talk about.
Yeah.
I'll do it, man. I'm not opposed, but I'm just saying, sorry, folks. It was hard.
Yeah. Well, you wanted me to show this before we get to some of the images from the ground and video
I
of
just
the Minab cemetery.
a lot of people around the world had seen this image, and I had seen it too. And I was so moved by what we just saw that I was like kind of like a zombie in the car. I swear I wasn't even sure we were coming to the cemetery, and then we pulled up at it, and it was like, oh God, like we're here. I have a very good friend who knew what I should see, and so, but where we are in these videos is the paved over. It's what you're seeing now, but paved over and with a cover for shade, and then with some swamp coolers so that people who are visiting can stand to be there for as long as possible. So what I got while I was there was photos of just some graves that might be familiar, because the victims became sort of known because of their images, like the little boy who was waving goodbye to his mom, things like that. But then as we were talking to people, there was one representative from the military who was just basically like, man, like let me send a message home to America. And I encouraged him to do that. And so I'll just explain, because it was so hot and humid. Excuse me. Hang on. Because it was so hot and humid, my camera, even though we weren't in the sun and I didn't have any other apps open, it was telling me like heat warning shutting down, heat warning shutting down. Never happened before. So I took these videos in chunks, not wanting to lose the opportunity to get what this guy was saying. So I apologize for the sort of 2 or so minute chunks, but it was actually an environmental reality that the phone didn't want to work in that heat and humidity. So again, some of you might recognize some of these kids, some of their teachers, but this representative from the community and from the military will let us know a little bit about some of these victims. And it's not really funny, but in the first video, my friend, this is just how real this was, folks. We weren't prepared for this. So the guy starts talking, and I'm filming him, and he wants us to translate, but we didn't know that he didn't necessarily need to translate for me, because I can get most of it. But so he asked my friend Amir to translate. And so Amir, he's not a translator. So he just starts saying what the guy said in Farsi. And the guy's like, no, dude, in English. And so at that point, Amir did his job, and like, bless him for how he did, because, you know, he speaks English, but he doesn't practice it usually unless I'm hanging out with him. And so I believe, based on what I know the guy was saying and how Amir translated it, is a really, really, I think, excellent translation, at least as would serve purposes for showing to your audience, Adnan.
Yeah. Okay. Well, maybe, for that first video, maybe Dave, you'll be able to, before the real translation takes place, maybe you can give us simultaneous summary.
Well, he does it. He does it. The guy says greetings to the American people, and he says his thing, and then Amir doesn't say anything, and then he's like, translate, and then Amir starts to talk in Farsi, and he's like, no, in English. And so Amir does a good job. It's all there. I'll just say again that it cuts off when he's about to talk, because I wanted to stop it and then restart it, so at least the video that I got wouldn't be lost should the phone crap out completely.
USA سلام. اینجا میناب ایران. اینجا گلزار مینابه. ایشون کریمی است، معاون مدرسه شجره طیبه. دوبلاژ کن. بگو.
اینجا میناب، مزار شهدای میناب. ایشون
زبان انگلیسی رو من فارسی بهت میگم.
Here is Minab, martyr yard of the USA tribe. This is the deputy of the school, Mrs. Karimi.
توی مدرسه معروف به مادر بچه‌ها.
He is famous in the school as a mom of the students.
موشکای تامهوکتون اینها رو به اینجا آورد.
Your Tomahawk missile bring these martyrs here.
اینم دختر اینه. این دختر ایشونه.
This martyr is the daughter of this lady.
ایشون خواهر ایشونه. ایشون خواهر ایشونه و خاله ایشون.
This is the sister of Mrs. Karimi, and that one is aunt of this little martyr.
ایشون پسردایی ایشونه. سپر کریمی.
This is the cousin of Mrs. Karimi.
ایشون پسرداییش سال عباسی اقوام دیگه است.
This is another cousin from Mrs. Karimi.
یعنی ما اینجا 5 تا شهید از شجره اینجا داریم از خانواده کریمی ها.
These are 5 martyrs from Karimi's family.
یک خانواده رو نابود کردید. یک خانواده.
You had destroyed not only one family, but all the families here.
اینجا خدیجه درویشی هستش. خدیجه درویشی.
Mrs. Khadija Darwishi, the martyr.
توی خدمت شما عرض کنم که روز 9/12/404 میشد 10 رمضان شهادت حضرت خدیجه خانم پیغمبر میشد. روز شهادت حضرت خدیجه میناب شهید شد.
This lady's name is Khadija. The prophet wife's name is Khadija. She be martyred the same day of the death of the wife of the
باباش
Prophet
تصادف
Muhammad.
کرده الان توی کما هستش.
His dad is in a coma.
We'll get the next one up.
The red flags are for revenge in response to the question that was asked. They also
That's
have,
right.
and I'm going to break down saying it, but they have dog tags that have Quranic inscriptions, and they have
everyone
that they're putting on the graves and circulating them around to impart the physical barakah, the I guess I should say the spiritual. It feels physical, but the barakah, the spiritual power, and they give them to people, and they blessed me by giving me a handful when I left. So in the background of some of these videos, you'll see kids who are the relatives of the deceased putting these items on different graves to charge them up, if you will, before they give them to visitors.
Yeah, and you will see a lot of these red banners in images of the funeral for Sayyid Ali Khamenei, if you watch some of those. Here's the second part.
این رضا حبشیانه.
This martyr is named Reza Habashian.
8 سال بود.
8 years old.
همین یه دونه پسر بود.
Only one son in the family.
بعد از 12 سال خدا یه اولاد به اینا داد، رضا.
After 12 years, they give this family this son.
اونم رفته بودم تو حرم امام رضا نذر نیابت که این بچه خدا بهشون داد از 13 سال.
The family went to the shrine of the Imam Reza and begged to give them a son.
8 ساله میاد توی شجره درس بخونه، رفت پیش خود امام رضا و شهید شد.
He had been attended the school when he was 8 and then went to the Imam Reza to be with
مردم USA به کدامین گناه اینا رو شهید کردی؟ همین یه دونه رو به کدامین گناه؟
People of the United States.
گناهش چی بود؟
What his crime? What this martyr crime?
مستر ترامپ تو میگی من اینا رو نکشتم. خب تو میگی من اینا رو نکشتم. اینا اسلحه نداشتن، اینا اسلحه‌شون قلم و خودکارشون بود.
Mr. Trump, you say that I didn't kill these martyrs, these Shajara Tayyibah students. These people haven't any weapons in their hands.
به خواستهات و آرزوت نمیرسی، بچه رو کشتی.
The only weapon they got, only their
کودک
pencils and
کش.
their books. You don't reach to your
مرد بر نتانیاهو.
targets and
مرد بر آمریکا، مرد بر USA، کودک کشتی.
down to the Trump, down to the USA and down to the Israel for killing the innocent
دیگه
children.
اولاد ندارن، تموم.
This family doesn't have any
تو هیچ جای دنیا بیمارستان و مدرسه رو نمیزنن، تو مدرسه رو زدی، اینا رو زدی.
Nowhere in the world they strike schools or hospitals, but you had targeted the schools, targeted during the...
بیا اینجا بیا.
Yeah, so that's was he saying, Dave, that they went to Imam Reza's shrine in Mashhad to pray to have a child because they had waited 12 years, and then he was 8 years old, and then he was murdered. Yes. And now there's nobody left in their family, and yeah.
میردادی.
This is Zahra Mirdadi, martyr.
اون پسرش علی.
That is his son.
اینم دخترش مهیا. اونم دخترش مهیا.
Daughter Mahya.
میدونی از علی چه چیزیشو خاک کرد اون روز؟
You don't know what is the remaining of this alley.
علی کنار مداد رنگیش فقط یه دست بردن خاک کردن مردم آمریکا.
People of the United States, the remaining of the body of this martyr, only one hand next to his colored pencils.
به کدامین گناه؟
To which crime these people had been martyred?
دونالد تو میگی من اونجا یه مکان نظامی بوده، چند تا ژنرال رو بیاوردی بیرون؟
Donald, you say that is what was the military base.
چند تا سرنگ آوردی بیرون از اونجا؟
General, how many colonels you got you find
هرچی از شجره طیبه میناب اومد بیرون از این جنس آدما بود، پسر بود، دختر بود، معلم بود.
Any martyr which had been found in this strike, only students and teachers, no any military personnel. آقا ممنون.
امیدوارم مردم آقا
So I had to cut it off, and I was bummed because Omid Varamke, he's like, I'm hopeful that so I had him repeat it for the last little bit there. I think you have about a 25-second one left where he's trying to make it's Persian. He's trying to like make some sort of final reconciliation point, if you will. So let's see that.
امیدوارم هیچ جای دنیا هیچ کشوری شاهدش دیگه نباشین که بیمارستان رو بزنن، مدرسه رو بزنن، کودک رو بزنن. هیچ جای دنیا مرگ بر کودکش.
Nowhere in the world strike any school or hospitals or any innocent people.
So Emir didn't translate it, but Marg bar Kudakosht is just death to the child killers, or down with the child killers.
That reminds me so much of the little girl with the from the South, when he was interviewed on Iranian television after this failed attempt, perhaps to get the uranium or whatever it was. I think it was a Bakhtiari tribal, Luri warrior who shot at these helicopters, and his daughter told him, keep shooting, they're still flying. And they asked her, why she was so adamant, that they had to oppose them. And they said, because of the children of Minab, and because they're child killers. And I think she used exactly that word. So you visited the cemetery in Minab. I agree with you also that the multi-part documentary series, I don't know how many it will eventually be, but I think there are 3, or maybe the 4th has come out, of the Still Minab series that Helia Doutaghi has put together. We did discuss the first 2 episodes with her on this program, but they're maybe a little less accessible now if there are new ones, because Jidal English's X account has been taken down. I think perhaps because it has been posting this series and has helped produce it. But I would encourage people to go check out the available parts of that ongoing series about Minab. There's some amazing profiles, but it's clear also from your visit to the cemetery that this place is very much remembered. Their names of these victims will never be forgotten. And like the other cemeteries that we visited of martyrs in Iran, they actually really pay attention to those who have sacrificed or been sacrificed. They're not just forgotten or quarantined somewhere. I mean, they're part of living daily life and daily memory. And they're actually among the most beautiful places that we visited in Tehran. And this one is also a very painful, beautiful place. So yeah, very affecting.
Well said, brother. Yeah.
So, what's interesting is there's a really big funeral taking place now, but this happened on the very same day as the Supreme Leader's martyrdom. And
I'll just mention, interestingly, really not to cut you off, but the families of the Minab victims just took the same train that I took exactly 1 week ago, arriving at the Tehran station with their red flags to get out and get on the metro to go and to see off Ayatollah Khamenei. So this is it's a national. This is, I mean, of course, but it's like a national event that up to 20+ million people are traveling to Iran to experience, including the families of the Minab victims.
Yeah. So yes, there are, I believe, 4 episodes that are out, or maybe 5. But if you go to Jidal English on YouTube, you can see the full playlist. But yeah, so you were talking about how many people were preparing at the time that you were leaving to go for attending the funeral events, because it isn't just one day event, but there will be processions in a number of places. It was very interesting to see the plan that was published for the funeral events. Actually, I could share the tab here so that people could.
While you do that, just a little bit of historical background for the viewers. And I'm pretty sure a lot of viewers won't know this, because most Iranians I talk to about it weren't aware of it either. And I even showed them pictures, and some of them were sort of taken aback for the first time. But the thing that I want to explain is that the funeral for Ayatollah Khomeini, the founder of the Islamic Republic of Iran and the first Rahbar, or supreme leader in 1989, was the largest funeral in history. Guinness Book of World Records. I think it was Gamal Abdel Nasser was before that, and or Kulthum in 1975. But as such, and not having done something like this before, it got out of hand. The body of Ayatollah Khamenei literally got out of the IRGC's hand and into a crowd that was extremely passionate and feeling it. And at one point, the casket whipped open and people start ripping pieces of his funeral shroud, and IRGC had to fire into the air to get people to stop. And it was some crazy shit. And so it was passionate. Many can look at it and say it was beautiful. But let's just say, irrespective of how you want to think about that event, they were not going to allow that to happen again in this event. And so the planning for this event has been months in the making. What's really fascinating, and I won't digress on it, but the physical infrastructure of this, when I was there, they were planning. I mean, I've got friends who sent me photos of the food preparation, and I might have sent you this at one, Adnan, but I've never seen more kebab about to be cooked in my life. It's this factory, like industrial kebab, like Dorna kebab shop. It's insane. Thousands of kebabs. These guys are it's all volunteers. They've all got the hairnets on and everything, and they're making Subway sandwiches for 50,000 people. It's the food, the Subway, everything's free. The parking, there was a post we have 1.2 million parking spaces, but please cite where your car is so that it doesn't lead to problems later. I was just joking with my wife that in a couple of years there's going to be a movie about the person who came from Mirand to Tehran for this and is still looking for their car 4 years later, because right, you're going to drive to Tehran and park your car, and anybody that's done that for a concert or a festival knows sometimes when you get out it looks a little different. And there you go, man. Thank you That was from my friend Saeed, who is volunteering there with those guys. I wish he had taken a selfie. But mashallah, Saeed, thank you. That's just beautiful. But so this is really well thought out, and the infrastructure of it, as well as infrastructure for around 20 million. We're not sure, it could be 30, it could be 40, it might be 15, but so thus far it has looked just very organized, even though there are a lot of people there. But you can see there people aren't crushing. There's no stampede. It's very orderly, and so mashallah, that's really wonderful to see, because in General Soleimani's funeral, unfortunately in Kerman, about 200 people died because of a crush of humanity. In that context, they are martyrs as well, and so they're within the culture, there's a beauty in that as well. But again, nobody wants to be a martyr. It's not you're not seeking your martyrdom. If martyrdom happens, it happens. But so the effort was to really do this right, and they've so far, I think, done a really good job of that.
Yeah, and I think this is going to be probably the biggest funeral. I mean, if you think of there was, Sheikh Hassan Nasrullah's was really massive, and of course,
yes.
Why am I blanking now all of a sudden? 2019.
The scene that
no,
was huge.
No, the IRGC commander.
Soleimani, General Soleimani.
Yeah, General Qasim Soleimani. When his funeral was incredibly massive as well, but this one may dwarf all of those, except for Ayatollah Imam Ruhollah Khomeini's that you were describing. But and some people actually anticipated in the chat. I mean, I wanted to mention that there's like a whole sequence of events and processions involved. Many delegations came on Thursday, Friday to attend some of the visitations and farewell at the Musalla of Imam Khomeini. And actually, I was wondering, Dave, is that the place that's near that big cemetery outside the city, close towards the direction of the airport, where there's the kind of massive space and also the really big cemetery? If that's the place where they were holding this visitation that we visited and went as well, I think it might have been.
I'm not, honestly, I'm 95% sure. The only other place it can be is if you know by Tabiat Bridge and the Martyrs Museum, they have another huge open masala, but I'm pretty sure it's down by Behesh Zahra and Khomeini's mausoleum.
Behesh Zahra Cemetery, yeah. Right. In any case, people were gathering there, and they were announcing the different delegations that came in to pay respects to the remains of martyr Ali Khamenei. But then there's going to be maybe in like an hour and a half, actually, maybe 2 hours, will be the janaza prayers, the funeral prayers, taking place 6 a.m. Tehran time. So that's about to start over there Sunday. And then there will be a funeral procession, on the 6th. And then they're going to also visit the following day, Qum, a very important city that is where their religious establishment have their seminaries. It's one of the most important cities for the training of Shi'i ayatollahs and clerics and so on, to go to Najaf, right? Very important also that same day. And also the next day in Najaf. So this is in Iraq. Okay, so they're crossing the border going into, and so that must have taken some coordination with the Iraqi authorities as well. And then they will go to Karbala, of course, the martyr Imam Hussein. We just had the Ashura and the Muharram events that commemorate the original kind of almost founding metaphor, you might say, for martyrdom in the Shi'i tradition, that we've been talking about in our series of Muharram for anti-imperialists. And then to go to Imam Reza's, Ali Reza's tomb in Mashhad, which is a place where is considered very blessed to be buried in that vicinity. And so a lot of people hope to be buried in Mashhad. And so it's going through a circuit of all the really important cities for Shi'is, but also crossing the boundaries of Iran and Iraq, which I think really is another vector that you were talking about, the importance of this connection with the pre-Islamic past for a national identity and a form of nationalism that transcends even, the Islamic Republic, but puts it in continuity, tries to kind of connect it to the history of Iran. And I noticed that people like Ali Larijani, Araghchi, and others, over the course of the war were making a lot of statements about Iran having 6,000 years of civilization, of history, several thousand years of statecraft and rule, and that they were referring essentially to the continuity of Iranian statehood in some sense. But this is another vector that I think is really important, and also Absolutely. Is a new moment. And I think Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, in fact, I saw some things recently that he suggested at the start of the Al-Aqsa flood, and then, of course, the Israeli genocide in Gaza, that it was also a new moment and opening up a new period in the history of the Ummah as a whole as well, that it would create possibilities for new movements, new solidarities to emerge in this context. And I think holding these across these borders, inviting people from all over the world to come for the funeral in Tehran, but also to take it to other locations and connect Shi'i Muslims and others all together, is a much more ummatic kind of framework that is also operating at another level of the soft power possibilities that have opened up, and to try and use it for some of those purposes of solidarity. And one point that I wanted to raise is that I saw some communications inviting people from all over the world to come to the funeral. I myself, almost went. I wasn't able to change my ticket. I'm leaving tomorrow for Istanbul. I really tried to look into going a little bit earlier so I could attend. But in the communications to people, it was about trying to gather all those from around the world who fight against oppression: activists, scholars, intellectuals, people who are engaged in opposing empire. And they said, in particular, we would like to bring together all those who have been working in solidarity with Palestine. And they wanted to make some of these events that will be happening in in Tehran over this period between July 4th and 6th also have some events and activities for people to kind of gather, to talk about solidarity, strategy, build some kind of sense of community for Palestine as well. And that's something that Ayatollah Ali Khamenei was incredibly dedicated to, the cause of Palestine. It was never far from his sort of feeling. And I did want to share that as a commemorative publication that they did. I don't know if I can share this. This will be a little bit harder. Let's see. Oh, slide and PDF. I don't have. Okay, it's on my computer. No, let's see if I can share the window.
Adnan, if I can just briefly, because I don't want to forget this point, because really that was really brilliant. Your observations about the importance of the sort of trans-border nature of this event, and so transcending these national borders to link up the holy places of Shiite imams. And I think a little bit of historical background here would be important for viewers, so that they understand really what a change this is. The Iran-Iraq War, that we refer to it in English as the Iran-Iraq War, in Iraqis refer to it. The Adnan, help me, man. What's the battle where the Arabs beat the Qadisiyah?
Yeah, Qadisiyah.
Saddam's Qadisiyah, right? So Saddam's Qadisiyah, it was Saddam's Arab Muslim war against the frickin' Persians, right? Saddam's Qadisiyah, going back to the Battle of Qadisiyah, which is what, 637, I think, 637.
Yeah, it's it's in the 630s. I can't remember if it's 37 or 38. Yeah.
So Iran called it Karbala. It was Karbala 1, Karbala 2, Karbala 3, right? So the Iranian government, so Karbala is the holy city in which Imam Hussein was martyred and where he is buried, and therefore the Iranian government called it Karbala, like we're going to Karbala, and that was very inspiring and motivating. But think about it. So we've got 8 years with about 1 million casualties, considering the deaths and the wounded on both sides, right? Over 1 million casualties. In 1989, when Ayatollah Khomeini died and they had his funeral, there's no way. My friend Amir was still in Iraqi POW camp getting the shit beaten out of him for another 3 years. Okay. So 2.5 anyway, but he only got out when the Operation Desert Storm got in motion, and Saddam decided that it'd be better to just get rid of these guys and make some local friends. He also flew 150 Iraqi airplanes into Iran on the same weekend. So that began the change. But in 1989, there was no way Iranians were going to go to Karbala to do anything. Period. You're not, dude. You're maybe if you could go to Jordan and come in over that border and pretend you're not Iranian or something. But so the fact that this procession can go from Iran to Iraq, to Najaf, where Imam Ali, the first Imam, the cousin and son-in-law of the Prophet Muhammad, is buried, to Karbala, where Imam Hussein is buried and where he was martyred, and then over to Mashhad, where the 8th Imam, Imam Reza, is buried. And I just wanted to briefly elaborate for viewers. Mashhad is the pilgrimage city within Iran where Iranians go to visit Imam Reza. Imam Reza is the patron saint of Iranian Shia Islam. Not that Ali and Hassan and Hussein aren't, but Iranians have a special affinity for Imam Reza, the 8th Imam. All of the imams, all 12, are known for something in particular, like a certain essence. And Imam Reza is like the love imam. He's the hippie imam almost. He's the don't sweat it, we can work this out. Like oftentimes, Ali is shown with Zulfiqar, his sword, and he's an ass kicker. Hussein too. Imam Reza is always doing this, like, stop, think, like, chill. He's so Mashhad, which is a 24-hour, 24/7 city, like with pilgrims from all over the world, but also all over Iran, has a very like welcoming and loving vibe. For example, if you go to Mashhad, believers there, like, there's a reason why you're there. You came because Imam Reza invited you, right? Like, therefore you're there as the Mehmoon, the guest of Imam Reza. And it's genuine. Like the vibe in that city and the treatment of pilgrims is like otherworldly, I guess, here with our earthly reality of like hate and violence and theft. And it's so beautiful. It's so amazing. Like, you can walk out of the hotel from all points around the round shrine at like 3 a.m, and there's like kids, like ice cream, and like 24/7. So it also draws the poor, and people are there also to give out money to the poor. So it's very like mixed and just a very, very beautiful vibe. And so I just wanted to explain the importance of your point, and that is this like ummah, sort of I'd say the manifestation of the ummah, if you will, at least a portion of it in this context, the transcendence of these national borders to be able to link through this funeral the holiest sites in the region for the imams. And so it's truly, just again to underscore your point, that is really profound. I'm realizing, I mean, this is a different region, if you will. Now, well, certainly it's how many 37 years since Khomeini, but so a lot of things transpire, but I think this really illustrates what a profound change we've seen, certainly between Iran and Iraq. I mean, it's incomparable to almost antithetical to how it was before in '89 with Khomeini's death.
Yes, absolutely. And, it's what made Sayyidah Zainab in outside of Damascus such an important shrine during this period when, during the Iran-Iraq War, access to Najaf and Karbala was not possible for the great pilgrimages like that of the Arba'in, which is going to be happening later at the very start of August, the 40th
which
day.
We got to do someday, brother. But anyway,
we can do it this year. This year is going to be off the hook, just unbelievable. I mean, we'll have to do it, but this is annually probably the largest annual event in the world. I mean, this is also 15 to 20 million people apparently participate over the last decade or so since it was possible, with the final more or less ending of direct U.S. complete occupation and war in Iraq. Obviously, they still have bases, and the Iraqi government doesn't have full sovereignty because even its oil revenues are spirited away directly to a bank account in New York that they have to appeal for spending on national budget. They have to make an appeal to the Americans to have access to their own money. So obviously it's not a completely sovereign country on its own, but the relationship between Iraq and Iran has changed dramatically in this time. And now you can have this major pilgrimage that goes to Najaf. People walk from Najaf to Karbala to arrive on the 40th day, hence Arba'in, the 40th day, after the anniversary of Imam Hussein's martyrdom on the 10th of Muharram, right? So that is also, this is going to be a bit like an Arba'in, in a way,
Yes.
not to Karbala. So,
and I want you to go on and make the point you were going to make before I interjected, but I hope viewers understand how Ashura and its narratives and its martyrs have been enfolded with the contemporary Iranian narratives and martyrs, and therefore there's this huge power in this moment and in these expressions, because they, like, in any given year, the purpose of Muharram is to bring the individual back to 680 and back to the suffering of Imam Hussein. Iranians in 2026 in the summer, in this winter, and then leading up to this point now, during this Muharram, they just experienced it, and so there's like an enfolding. It's just the Ashura, which I experienced in Van Nack, the 10th day. We call him the Rawzakhuni. He's the professional mourner who tells stories with his voice about to break, like that just makes people emote and cry. And he was overtly linking Ashura and Imam Hussein to the death of the leader, and to Palestine, and to Gaza, and to South Lebanon. Like preachers, pastors, like imams around the world do this, right? What's the historical lesson? What's the Quranic phrase? And then how is that relevant to like what's going on today and what we're doing today? Why should you in 2026 care about what was written 1400 years ago, or what was revealed 1400 years ago? They were explicitly directly linking this, like almost like, do you see, folks? Gaza, it's Karbala, it's 2020. So that just, they don't have to fake that. that everyone's there already, and so they're like stewing and reveling in it, and like working it. I don't know how else to explain it. It's really powerful.
I mean, people should go back. This is so in line with what we were doing with the Muharram for anti-imperialists. Is people should go back. We did 5 videos. There's a 6th to come out. The editing has just been, taking a long time because the audio wasn't good. But of making those kinds of connections about the meaning of Karbala and Ashura, and it isn't just a grieving for events that happened 1400 years ago, but it is the making of that experience, the memory and commemoration of it meaningful as a lesson that resonates with our own time. And so the stories of the thirst suffered as they were, prevented from drawing water from the nearby river by Yazid's forces. That suffering of lack of potable water and thirst, it just is so resonant with what
the murder of Abul Faz al-Abbas, the brother-in-law of Hussein, who went to get the kids the water, and
Yes.
in his leather flask, and they shoot him and cut off his arms. All of these stories, I mean, it is powerful.
Those remind us of course, the lack of food and especially of water in Gaza, just now, contemporaneously. And that reminds me to tell everyone that we've been doing our fundraiser, and I've put the link in the chat. I need to keep doing it, but please do support Dahnun Mutual Aid in Gaza. One of the things they do is that they provide potable water to families in Gaza. So if you can, I'll put the link in the chat again and remind you, if you can, please be generous. But that's exactly how the contemporary meaning of Karbala transforms from just a kind of pious commemoration through grief and mourning and empathy into a radical revolutionary demand to stand up against oppression for justice, even in the face of suffering and possible sacrifice of one's life, that you have to take the example of Imam Hussein. It isn't just mourning and grieving for the terrible loss of the Prophet's grandson and third Imam, but it is an example to emulate and to be inspired by in standing up to the Yazid of our time. I mean, I think there must have been so many posters and characterizations of Trump as Yazid and maybe Netanyahu as Shimr, you know, the leader of the
absolutely. I must say, well, go finish your point, please.
Well, just I was going to play. I think you have.
I'll make the point.
Given us a couple
Christ,
of videos,
if you will, Christ, Hazrat Isa, who is also honored and beloved to Muslims and Shia Muslims. If you will, he died so that you don't have to. He took one for the team. Imam Hussein, that's not how it works. His martyrdom isn't like, oh, Imam Hussein was martyred, therefore, you know, that martyrdom is sufficient and then therefore inherently does not require our walking Hussein's line. It's not that's not the message. It is we all must walk Hussein's line, and we must, to echo a comment that someone wrote, we all must say no to humiliation at any cost.
Yeah. In fact, actually, yes. With the Muharram, I mean, isn't it? Imam Hussein says, he says in Arabic, but the translation is "far from us is humiliation." Right?
Yes.
Like we just, you know, we put it far away from us. Like we're not even close to allowing ourselves to be humiliated by sacrificing our principles. We will sacrifice ourselves before we sacrifice a principle. I mean, this is just.
And that, by the way, Adnan, is what the Armenian embassy wrote. And they tweeted, they said, you know, when Trump threatens to kill people at the funeral, he really doesn't get it. It's you can go ahead and like kill human beings. That has nothing to do with this like eternal message of ultimate persistence of the faith and of the community. So just showing his complete lack of understanding of how it works. You're going to kill some more people. You're going to create some more martyrs.
Yeah.
What does that accomplish in this context? In fact, according to your agenda, pardon my French, but you're fucking up, because like that's the opposite of what you should do. If you want to be sort of victorious over these people, that's certainly backwards. So that was very
what's remarkable is like it seems that they have learned nothing, you know, from these events. If they're still making these threats of attacking people going to a funeral, you know, I think Trump said that, oh, well, there's going to be they're all going to be gathered in one place. It's a target. And somebody, Laura Loomer, saying, oh, it's a target rich environment. You know, I mean, what they don't seem to understand is how much the martyrdom, the assassination, the cowardly attack upon Ayatollah Ali Khamenei backfired so dramatically in unifying people, in dramatizing exactly the injustice of the U.S.-Israeli empire, and that, you know, it kind of brought people together in resistance. You know, I mean, they just don't seem to understand that martyrdom, that the creation of new martyrs is in fact actually the worst tactical or strategic, you know, mistake that you could make. And in fact, I think it contributed enormously to Iran's success in the
Hezbollah. And look, people underestimated Sheikh Qassem, but they don't get it. They're like, oh, how is this guy going to be able to lead Hezbollah? Like, Hezbollah is South Lebanese Shia society and resistance. And based on the martyrdom of Nasrallah, they kicked the shit out of the Zionists just now. Absolutely. That doesn't mean it's going easy for them or their communities. But it's again, I think that just illustrates, like, kill Nasrallah. Are you happy? Because guess what? Like you just emboldened and fortified the Hezbollah movement. So keep it up.
Yeah, and I mean, I think Trump also expressed it clearly. They've been showing him some of the videos. You know, he remarked that, there's a lot of people crying. I thought they hated, you know, the Ayatollahs. Maybe it's fake tears. I mean, you know, it's like he just cannot conceptualize that no, you've been told a bunch of lies. You're operating on a bunch of racist Orientalist assumptions. You thought, assassinating their leader would mean the society would collapse. The opposite has happened. And these people genuinely, clearly care and love. And you actually gave greater love. There may have been a lot of people who are not especially committed to the Islamic Republic's ideology, etc., maybe more critical, etc., but they could see how horrifically unjust and cowardly this assassination was. And it was demeaning. It was an attempt at demeaning and humiliating the entire nation of Iran, right? And they refused to accept the logic of that and instead rose up in defiance in millions every night for like 100 and what are we on? 120, 30 nights at
30,
this point.
probably, I'd say,
So,
yeah,
yeah.
35.
Well, we should maybe.
I want to make sure you were building up to a really cool point, and I like preempted.
Oh no,
you with
I was going to show maybe a video of the Ashura and Van Nak, but what I was really, which I don't know if we will necessarily need to or have time, but I did want to connect it to. There's two topics that I still wanted to talk about the funeral, which was one is his connection to Palestine, and also just maybe I'll share this now if I can. Which is, this commemorative publication that was before the funeral from April. Already, in some ways, they were preparing for how they want to memorialize his legacy. And this is the title, and it's in multiple languages, in English and Farsi, perhaps a couple other languages, a tribute to the martyr of resistance. So this is what is his legacy, is that he is a martyr for resistance. And, they point out, and they have a whole section, he was martyred for Palestine, that goes and talks about, his dedication to the cause of Palestine. And I'll just, come here to the start of it.
Nasrallah too, man. He gave his all for Palestine.
That's right. And so they have this kind of section really about Palestine and his commitment to it. It's a lot of beautiful art in here as well. And they had some articles by, short pieces memorializing his commitment to Palestine, including Mr. Khalid Qadoumi, who's actually been quite interesting and made some comments recently about the unity of the fronts, the unity of the fields, because there had been a lot of discussion and talk about the MOU not mentioning Gaza specifically the way it mentioned Lebanon, and people were raising unhelpful questions, it seemed to me, that, is Iran really as committed, and why didn't they mention Gaza, etc. And he made a very important statement talking about how his discussions with the Islamic representatives of the Islamic Republic of Iran include Palestine, because the language did say all fronts, and that going forward there will be increasing pressure put on Israel, on behalf of protecting Palestine and demonstrating further concrete, solidarity materially, diplomatically, politically with Palestine, and that this is just a step. So he also contributed something, to this. There were some, other activists like Charlotte Cates, who's, well-known coordinator for Samidun, the political prisoners of Palestine.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
And then yours truly had a brief little piece in there as well. But I like the art is just so gorgeous. And I just wanted in that piece to make the point of how committed and interconnected he saw the politics of the whole region to the question of Palestine. And, I think this is something that he will be remembered for rather uniquely or powerfully, is really the cause of Palestine and Iran's continuing commitment and suffering and sacrifice for decades because of their unwavering support for Palestine. So that was one thing I just wanted to mention. But the other thing that was really kind of interesting, and somebody actually had posted in the chat a question about it, is that when each of these delegations were coming on Friday to the Musalla of Imam Khomeini to pay respects and say farewell to Sayyid Ali Khamenei, it was interesting that there were Quranic verses specially chosen that were being
Yes.
recited as each delegation walked out. And some of them are quite interesting because you could see possibly that there were subtle references of making messages, encoding messages to those political figures who were coming, that were
Like the
making
Saudis.
yeah,
The,
like
the
making
Saudis received a Quranic revelation that talks
oh,
about
great
essentially
one.
not turning on others
I
within
have
the
it here.
ummah.
Let me share this because this is really
Yes.
really
Yeah,
good.
I was like, whoa, dude, they got to stand there and listen to it. And that's from the Quran. So they gotta hear it. They might not like the context, but
They might not, but so what we have, particularly for the Saudi Arabia, there was certainly a sign for you in the two armies that met in battle, one fighting in the cause of God and the other disbelieving. The believers saw their enemy twice their number, but God supports with his victory whoever he wills. Surely in this is a lesson for people of insight. Basira. If you have insight, then you will take a lesson from what happened in the array between an army of the disbelievers and an army of God, even though it might seem that the army of the disbelievers is bigger, more powerful, etc. That wasn't what ended up happening, and this is a lesson. So this is just so pointed and
mm-hmm. And they by the way, did you notice they walk in? I thought it was deep how they did it. Everyone walks in to the Iranian military band playing this. One could say it's beautiful, but it's kind of a dirge, and they're walking in, and then they stand. Once they're standing in front of Khamenei, that music stops, and then this like beautiful muezzin or the orator's voice, and so it's like, okay, well, what's going to be the message? So they had to stand there with 50 HD cameras on them and hear that Quranic verse that Adnan just
yeah. I mean, we could probably play some video of that, but I think there are a couple other ones that were interesting. Turkey, okay? God has elevated in rank those who strive with their wealth and their lives above those who stay behind. Okay? God has promised each a fine reward, but those who strive will receive a far better reward than the others. Okay, big talk, Turkey, about Palestine and all of that, you have to strive. Don't stay in the back. Okay, this is a brilliant, again, a message to them. It's like
and effort. If the word is jihada, it's like effort, like exertion, like
it's strive is you jahid, it's like exercise, like effort, spend effort, strive in the path of God, right? You have to use your wealth and resources. And I think this is especially pointed because strive with their wealth and their lives. But the wealth, like Turkey is in doing so much business, and they announced that they were doing an economic boycott, etc. But they still continued providing the oil from Azerbaijan through their pipelines to Israel. They still have
today it's going on right now.
Maybe even sending food supplies and all of that. So, like the wealth is supposed to be used actually for the benefit of the cause of justice, is what they're saying. Iran is saying. And you've had a lot of big talk about support for Palestine, but in the back, you've just been making money and been staying behind, right? I think that's a brilliant message for them as well.
And maybe one of the reasons why Erdogan didn't show up, right? He couldn't take the heat for that.
President. That's right. Well, that's the other thing, is like some regional countries probably felt like they have to, like they just have to go. Puts them in a difficult position, but so embarrassing for them. And there have been reports that the Tasnim news agency. This is from Iranian sources, and we haven't seen like, the memo or a lot of like direct testimonies from others, but they did quote high officials as well as regional countries, like high officials of regional countries of one of the Arab countries, that apparently Secretary of State Marco Rubio had sent a memo to embassies around the world that they should discourage the countries that they're in, the governments of the countries that they're in, from sending official delegations, and that if they did, it would be seen and read by the United States as a hostile act. Can you imagine the assassinated leader of a country, that other heads of state or other official delegations simply going to the funeral to, pay their respects? This is kind of like diplomacy 101, like just
and I must say, one of the countries that caved was South Africa, and that's really sad, just because South Africa has not only a unique relationship with Iran, the Islamic Republic of Iran, yes, but Ayatollah Khamenei had a deep personal relationship with Nelson Mandela, who, if you haven't seen the video, when he met Khamenei, he says, "My leader," and he says it loud, like in English, "My leader," like, and gives him a big hug. So the fact that South Africa, and I'm not judging because I don't know what kind of sick imperialist Epstein kind of imperial pressure they can put on South Africa, but surely Marco Rubio would pull out all the stops to make it miserable for them. So I'm not criticizing, but I just it's a shame, because there's really a deep and long-lasting bond between South Africa, which, let's remember, was the country that brought the case at the, and I'm forgetting if it was ICC or ICJ or both, but the International Criminal Court cases against the Zionist genocide. I think it's at the beginning where before he hugs him, right at the very beginning, he says, "My leader."
Gotta do it again then. There we go. There you go. Okay. So
I hope everyone remembers that the CIA was responsible for the original arrest of Nelson Mandela. He was considered a terrorist. They never really took him off the terrorist list, even though they said it was okay for him to fly. So anyway, it disgusts me how, in a certain way, the United States appropriated Nelson Mandela and the end of South African apartheid, when Israel and the United States were like in it to the hilt. So yeah.
Just maybe a couple last ones, just because these are so interesting to me. And I did do an episode with Indy, Indy.ca.
Whose blog is epic. I was reading Indy. I had more time to read on the train, and I was like, dude. Anyway, Indy is awesome.
Yeah. I did an episode with him called Quran as Geopolitics, and I thought this is just the absolute best. So people go back and listen to that, and then compare it to the way Iran talk about soft power is deploying like these Quranic verses as these delegations come out. I just thought this one was really interesting. For China, they put, "God ordained this only as good news for you and reassurance for your hearts, and victory comes only from God." Okay, so I wonder what they're thinking. I don't know if they got it translated for them, but that'd be like, okay, this is like a real very positive verse,
with a reminder that there is a God, just for what it's worth to the Chinese,
But I think the main thing is that they're saying, good news for you and reassurance to your hearts. I don't know about maybe the reassurance for your hearts is like, okay, listen, we had to cut off the Strait of Hormuz, but we're gonna send your oil. Don't worry, we'll do it by train. We'll do it however we have to. Be reassured.
No, really, man, I'm so glad you raised these, because I just saw a couple in my feed, and as I said at the beginning, I haven't been up on my feeds, if you will, on my monitoring the situation. So I did not have this list. You got to send that to me, that link. After
I will. I tweeted it.
Awesome.
Yeah, I retweeted it from this guy who put them together. This one for Qatar is great too. so that God may forgive you for your past and future shortcomings, perfect his favor upon you, and guide you along the straight path, and so that God will help you with a mighty victory. So it's like
Wow.
really balanced. It's really this kind of like, yeah, you strayed, you've done a bunch of bad things, but you can reform, and that will be a mighty victory for you if you get on the right side of all of this, like
Wow.
just again,
And talk about it again in terms of the Ummah. What's it all about, folks? It's about the Quran, right? It's about the word of God. Like, what did God say through Jibril to the Hazrat Muhammad? What was it? Like, all of these things, think about them, integrate them into your actions.
Yes. Yeah. I like that. And I think also the fact that they had relatively positive things to say for Pakistan and Egypt, and for Pakistan, and say, my Lord, grant me an honorable entrance and an honorable exit, and give me a supporting authority from yourself. And I think this
High
is because,
honor.
yeah,
Yes.
high honor, and the fact that they have been performing this service of hosting the negotiations, encouraging them, and so on, that they're trying to kind of congratulate them for that, and that they will be given a supporting authority. They will be strengthened. Egypt, their reward with their Lord will be gardens of eternity, under which rivers flow, to stay there forever and ever. God is pleased with them, and they are pleased with him. This is only for those in awe of their Lord. Again, a very positive one for Egypt. And I think what's going on here is Pakistan and Egypt, they may not have said many things publicly about, defending Palestine, unlike Turkey that has made a big deal out of it. But they also have held the line in certain areas. Like, they are, of course, totally dominated by, their militaries that are, basically in there with American backing. But there is this geopolitical regional security structure that seems to be congealing with Turkey, Saudi, Iran, and Saudi, Pakistan, and Egypt. And that's a potentially positive development if it doesn't turn into another Baghdad Pact, like the U.S. is sort of trying to turn it into, the Central Treaty Organization sort of thing, which was what, like 1956, was it?
55,
or 50,
yeah.
55. Yeah, it was 50. I was right before the Bandung Conference, that they did this Baghdad Pact. And, the thing is, though, is that could be a very wholesome development if they include Iran in this, right? And work together with Iran. Then that would shift the region entirely. So I think they're maybe trying to cultivate that with Egypt and Pakistan, who have been less compromised, I guess you could say, during the course of the Ramadan War, the 40-day war. Whereas, of course, there are U.S. bases in Turkey. There are, of course, also in Qatar, and there are, in Saudi. So those ones got a little bit more of a harsh kind of verse applied to them to sort of jolt them into, reconsidering their positions and their situation. But Pakistan and Egypt, that are U.S. allies, obviously. Nonetheless, maybe there's a little more purchase with them. They didn't get involved. They didn't really support. They didn't host like U.S. attacks on Iran from their territory. And instead, they've been playing important mediating role. I think they're trying to kind of acknowledge that, I think
also, just briefly, the dynamics right now between Israel and Turkey also in this context might be what illuminating for Turkish leadership, because you've got Iran perhaps admonishing a little bit through the Holy Quran, and you've got, I believe it's Naftali Bennett saying Turkey's next, and they're the new axis of evil, and like we're going after them. If you're Turkish leadership, and you're kind of like, putting your which way do you want to go? And I have to say, victory has 1,000 fathers, right? So I think Erdogan, who's Don't get me started on him. You've said enough. Like he can also sort of put his finger to the wind and see where things are blowing. And I won't go off on the can of worms, but relative to what's going on in Armenia, Iranian concerns about that, the Turkey and Iran can do business, if you will. I hate to say it, it's oftentimes at the expense of others. Turkey and Iran feel the same about Armenia and the corridor as they do about the Kurds, if you will. So what's not to get together over, basically? There's Israel's. My point was Israel's actions themselves and their statements. They're batshit crazy, aggressive, warmongering statements are doing themselves a great disservice, even to Erdogan, who has basically been their basement gimp selling them oil for all these years.
Yeah. I also just wanted to show this image because this has become sort of the theme, right? We must rise. Bayad Berdasht, is it?
Is it Beravim or Beradasht?
I might. It's too small on my screen, but
sorry. Where was this? Anyway, they've translated it as "We must rise."
Anyway, I would translate it more literally because my Farsi sucks, but I would say we need to go up. But this symbol has there's a new statue in Engelab Square, which is Khomeini's fists surrounded by two missiles coming up, because the center of Engelab Square didn't have any statuary, but they've now put this large statue. I actually hope it's permanent, because I've never understood what just the dome is. And when you're in the square, you can't see it. So it's like, why don't they put something there? It's very different than the other squares, Ferdowsi or Van Nack, or so that might be a new permanent feature.
This is for Jihad, Meidani Jihad in Tehran. So this isn't in Inqilab, but
Engelab has just it's a fist now in the middle of the square with the two there. It's like flourishes turning into missiles leaving behind like filigree. Anyway, I just saw that.
Right. Yeah.
I want to, while I have just a quick mention, we got a comment from one of our viewers. I was wrong. It is the 5%. I said 5% chance by Tabiat Bridge. It is the Mosala where this is going on is adjacent to that. It's not near Behesh Zahra. It's what I was saying.
It's more central,
like Haqqani metro station, like right by the museum and all that infrastructure, which makes sense because they're set up. There's two subway stations that serve.
Yeah, it's easier for people
north. So anyway, thank you to the commentary. I think it was Melissa Sanford who wrote that.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. All right. Melissa knows. All right. Excellent.
Our companion, Don and my companion.
Yes. We didn't visit that during our trip along with Melissa. We didn't visit that spot. Next December. When we
Bayad, it's Bayad Barkhast. Okay. Thank you, Mina. So Bayad Barkhast.
Okay. Yeah. Barkhast. Okay. Bayad Barkhast. Okay. Very good. Yeah, so we must rise.
Or like Bayad K.
Personal. Yeah. What's that? Go ahead.
I would have just said it in shitty Farsi, but I'm known for that.
Right. Yeah, so I don't know. I'm wondering what other sort of thoughts about, we've been going a while and you've been really generous, Dave, and everyone's been benefiting and enjoying your accounts of what you saw, what the mood
Great
was
comments,
like.
By the way. Did you see the one that said he didn't read Going to Tehran? That was Trump not understand, like when you were talking about he doesn't get it and why are these people crying or they're fake crying? It's like somebody wrote he didn't read Going to Tehran, which is Flint and Hillary Leverett's excellent book, which debunks all of this nonsense about Iran's lack of legitimacy and it's ready to fall apart and all the myths. It just breaks them down. So thank you for that comment. It was very, very apropos.
Yes. Well, I think we've covered most of the topics I wanted to about the funeral and the funeral procession. We'll be watching the news for in the coming days. But Dave, it was so wonderful to, have your account of your trip, of what you observed, of how people are responding and reacting to this situation, as well, of course, the, really heartrending and powerful images and video of Minab. I mean, we're talking about the important events related to the funeral of the martyr Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, but that same day, as we all remember and recall, this juxtaposition, I think, was, absolutely brings together what we can understand about the axis of Epstein, cowardly, Orientalist inspired racist attack on leader of another country, thinking that will, mean that they just collapse because these people don't have a system, they don't have a structure, they don't know how to govern, they're, just led by some charismatic but oppressive leader. And, once
and it's a dictatorship, top-down dictatorship, yeah.
And the people will rise up, once they're relieved. All we need to do is just, take this one figure out, and then everybody will be emboldened to rise up, for their freedom, on the one hand, and then on the other, the victimization of these school children, most of whom were school girls, their teachers, in an attack. AI generated. This is sort of like encapsulating absolutely everything that's evil right now in the empire is an AI generated and enabled undoubtedly by the crusader Pete Hegseth, Secretary
who is
of
a
War.
sadist. It's sadism. This is he's just a sadist. And yeah, go on. I'm sorry, but
no, it's just that is in fact actually the case, and it is the case, I believe, that he announced rather proudly that they were not going to be this, woke military fighting with one hand tied behind
rules
his
of
back.
engagement. He was like, we're not doing those pussy rules of engagement. Like, you're all fat and gay, and we're not doing international law. I mean, he came right out and said it to the military when he called them to Quantico, if people remember.
That's right.
No
so
quarter.
You could say
we are not going to. We are going to give no quarter. This is a war crime to say that. Sorry, folks. I get pissed off. I just
absolutely. I mean, what one could say is that his lifting of the kind of checks and protocols, because we don't need those, and they've just been tying our hands behind our back, and all of that is directly related to this attack. Is that he enabled it. It's like, even if they they would have done it anyway, it seems to me. I mean, they love victimizing innocent children, this Epstein empire. But any plausible deniability is gone because they created the conditions for exactly this sort of thing to happen. They were proud about doing it, about lifting all these protocols. And so this is what they did. But the rest of the world, unlike this kind of right-wing fascistic crusader culture of the American Epstein empire elites, the rest of the world actually mourns the loss of innocent children, and they will be remembered. One of the great things that the Iranian national football team did during this World Cup is highlight the 168.
And if I might just add, and I know we're wrapping up, but I just want to say, I honestly believe that they hit that school on purpose with the triple tap, and that's what the Zionists do, and that's what, unfortunately, the Zio-American Empire now in conjunction is doing. They actually think that by slaughtering human beings, it's kind of, again, what the Iranian embassy in Armenia tweeted to Trump, like, you think that by slaughtering kids in front of us that we're going to get on our knees and kiss your ring, that we're going to be humiliated by you and be made afraid by you, sick, child-killing sons of bitches? Like, absolutely not. That's never going to happen. But yet this is what the Zionists think. I know that this is how they roll. They're in their own sick, warmongering, genocidal bubble, and they think that they can scare humanity. Like, look at us killing kids, sniffing your wife's panties, destroying your house with hammers, destroying crucifixes, like, be scared of us. But actually, I don't know that they realize, because they're in such a bubble, that this has only pissed off humanity. This has only enraged and emboldened the forces of the resistance. And so I would just juxtapose this. There are claims that the 1988 downing of Iran Air 655, in which there were 290 civilians that died, that was July 3rd, 1988, that was purposeful. As a historian who has focused intensively on the downing of Iran Air 655, I don't believe that was purposeful. And I won't go into my reasons why, but I don't believe, and I got a lot of Iranians that I know were like, no, dude, it was purposeful. And I argue that was not purposeful. It was heinous. It was murder. And they didn't apologize for it. And they gave Captain Rogers a medal, but they didn't do it on purpose as we're going to blow your plane out of the sky. And, now you'll really fear us. But anyway, that's just my conclusion as a historian. But my conclusion as a historian and as an Iranian, as a human being, about Minab is they did it on purpose. And they thought that this would demoralize and scare Iranians. Like, oh my God, like, they'll kill all of our kids. We'd better kiss their ring and let Zionists come here and control our country. And as we've been discussing, it had literally the exact antithetical impact, the exact 180 degrees, and will continue to, because whereas President Trump wants to just forget about this and, hey, it's Monday. Hey, I think I'll go hang out with, maybe me and Mojtaba can hang out. Right? As he brags about killing General Soleimani and about doing all of these things, Iranians will never forget. Minab will not be forgotten by Iranians in 500 years, 1,000 years, and in 2,500 years. I know this. This is just a fact. It's how Iranians remember. It's the foundation, really, of the civilization and the culture, is their history and their historical memory. It's not the United States of amnesia, folks. It's the Islamic Republic of Iran. So to Pete Hegseth and to those who think that JASSMs and JDAMs and HIMARS and ATACMs and all of their corporate bullshit, their Raytheon, Boeing, Lockheed Martin bullshit is going to scare humanity, I don't even think they're ever going to get the memo. But just between us and our audience, take heart. It's never going to work, folks. It's never, ever going to work.
Indeed. In fact, it turned little girls into fighters, like the one who said, keep shooting, daddy, because they are, child killers, or the little girl who said, please, IRGC, paint one of the missiles pink, for me, they have, instead of demoralizing people, they have given them supreme moral courage and defiance. And, if they try something during this funeral, it'll also boomerang back completely. So,
and by the way, on that note, the most popular sort of tourist item, and also the latest tchotchke, is the Shahed keychain, which they sell in 3 different colors. I collected the whole set: pink, white, and black. So there's a certain pride that goes along with this resistance and standing up for what is right. Absolutely. And humanity and the children, and it's not hyperbole. Peace and sanctity and longevity in the face of sort of Zio-American capitalist hate and destruction. I think the path is clear. And I think that path is clear where humanity is headed right now. I really do. So I, despite the tears and the heaviness, I take heart in what I saw and experienced and heard when I was in Iran. And thank you all. Just such wonderful comments, and really just deeply appreciated.
Yeah, well, wasn't this the right way to spend your July 4th? For all of our American comrades in the chat, a better way, an anti-imperialist memorialization of the martyrdom of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, and also, of course, learning about Iran and its heroic and amazing people can't thank you enough, Dave, for making time, still jet lagged and all of that, to share your experiences and insights, and also deep emotions, and the passion, for truth and for justice, that you always bring, on office hours and on these programs. I know everybody in the chat
Thank you,
really
brother.
appreciates it, and
Thank you.
as do I so much. And so I want to thank you again for taking the time and coming and visiting us, and hopefully we'll talk again soon. To everybody in the chat, thank you for being here. Please like, share, subscribe this so that others can come across it and have the benefit of seeing some of those videos and images and hearing Dave's analysis as well as his experiences. I think it's very edifying for everybody, and you get firsthand accounts of what he saw, what he heard, and the voices of people there. I thought that those videos at the Minab cemetery were just so incredible. You're not going to kind of get access to how it is that people in Iran and what they want to tell us. I mean, I think the final conclusion was so powerful when he said he hoped that nobody anywhere in the world would suffer these kinds of assassinations and attacks upon schools and hospitals. So we can hope, we can hope for that. So I want to thank you. Please do also give to Dahnoon Mutual Aid in Gaza. Just as a reminder, we were talking a little bit about the parallels between the Karbala narrative and what we're witnessing in our world now. Please do not forget the people of Palestine. Give to Dahnoon Mutual Aid. I'll put it in the chat. It is already in the video description. That would be wonderful if you could do that. And also, we didn't even get a chance to talk about, because this has been a long discussion and program, but Dave is teaching a course online for students in Gaza as well. When you gave so generously over the past couple of months to the Spox for Gaza page and funding, you are supporting students taking his wonderful course on social biography and my course on guerrilla history, anti-colonial resistance. Those are just about to start. The first week is this coming week, I think. Or did you already have one meeting?
We're doing this is an organizational week. We're getting everybody divided between TAs. We have 160 students. It's really exciting. In fact, we had too many. I don't know about how it went, but we had to actually kind of cap it because it was just super popular and there's a great need.
Yes, that's right. I think I had 160, 70, 150. There's going to be a little attrition, as people are figuring out where they can go. But I'm sure I have to thank you, Dave, for putting me in touch with your colleague who was already doing this program. You wanted to do it as well. And I'm just so grateful that you informed me about this opportunity and that I was able to propose something, because I'm sure for both of us, and we'll be checking back in on this periodically, but for both of us, this is like practically the most meaningful thing we could do with the fact that we teach. We're, historians and all that, but, it's wonderful to teach our students in our university, but to be able to do something that helps and benefits young people in Gaza, I mean, that just means the world to us. So we're so grateful.
And every interaction I have with these students is it underscores what you just said, because they're just so thankful and so motivated. And it's also, I just want to say really brief, I know we got to cut off, but it's also so tragic. In my student chat, one of the students said, "Oh my God, they killed my friend, and they killed her friend Samir, who was a football player. And this beautiful human being has been slaughtered by the Zionists." And all the students, there was just this huge outpouring of grief for Samir. And so trying to keep it positive and like right now, even trying to keep it together, I said, you know what, somebody needs to write Samir's biography for this class, because history does not forget. And so that's what we're doing, is we're writing the social biographies of Gazans who have struggled to survive or who have not made it, but history is going to remember. So I'm just saying, it's like being in this group too. It's just, it's so real. And it's not that even just being on Telegram, you can forget that there's a genocide going on 24/7, but just to have it hit. I save all these images, whether I know these people or not. My phone has thousands of faces so that I don't forget. But just to have one that was so close to home within the community of my students is just underscores it all that much more. So thank you, Adnan, for mentioning that. For everyone who has supported the effort, like with the donation, and just it really there's nothing that I'd rather be doing this summer, and to be able to do some of that discussion on the train, back and forth from Bandar Abbas, really truly, I guess, a wonderful experience. If you can say teaching a class to students experience genocide is wonderful. So I think everybody knows what I mean. It's
yeah, definitely. Well, we will, check back in about this in the future. We might need to fundraise a little bit more for some of the student projects in my class, and I just appreciate everybody who supported up to this point. And since we're both teaching, I thought that would be great to kind of remind people of that and to thank everyone. This community was extremely supportive of that. So again, thank you everyone for coming, and thank you for all the support. Well, until next time, I'll be traveling quite a bit over the next few weeks. Maybe 1 or 2 episodes will come out, but it'll be a little while before I have another live stream. So until next time, though, I wish you all peace with justice and solidarity to you all. Salam. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim.